July 29, 2014, regular school board meeting back to order. We've just come out of executive session discussing matters relative to the purpose of the board and the district. Thank you for your patience in our deliberations that took longer than typically do, so we certainly extend our professional apologies for that delay. You also may notice that we have a different format or setup starting at this board meeting, and because of the arrival of new administrative staff officials, executive staff officials, wanting them to be down front and up close, we also wanted our two assistant superintendents to be a part of the panel. We arranged our seating, and certainly thank the executive staff for being this adjustment here. At this time, we're going to stand and have our inspirational reading and then our pledge of allegiance. We showed an inspirational reading today that I thought was kind of humorous. It may not, but I thought it was. That you will appreciate it as well. And I identified what the reading called the number that I identified the top 5 reasons to smile. Number 1, smiling makes us attractive. We're drawn to people who smile. There's an attraction factor there. We want to know a smiling person and figure out what is so good. Frowns, scowls, and grimaces all push people away, but a smile draws them in. Number 2, smiling changes our mood. Next time you're feeling down, try putting on a smile. There's a good chance your mood will change for the better. Number 3, smiling relieves stress. Stress can really show up in our faces. Smiling helps to prevent us from looking tired, worn down, and overwhelmed. When you're stressed, take time to put on a smile. Number 4, smiling lifts the face and makes you look younger. The muscles we use to smile lift the face, making a person appear younger. Don't go for a facelift, just try smiling your way through the day. You'll look a lot younger and better. And last, number 5, smiling helps you stay positive. Smile. Now try to think of something negative without losing the smile. It's hard. When we smile, our body is sending the rest of us a message that says life is good. Pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated. Even though we don't have public recognition on our special recognition on our agenda, we have 2 what I consider to be very special recognitions that we would like to make tonight. And Dr. Ham will assist me with that.
The South Carolina School Boards Association established a Boardsmanship Institute in 1982, and it recognizes school board members for reaching certain levels of professional education regarding their participation as board members. There's 6 levels, and I'm happy to say that we have 2 of our board members who have advanced. Dr. Monica Elkins Johnson has advanced to level 3, and Mr. James Manning has advanced to level 4. So we want to congratulate them and recognize them for the boardsmanship education that they've gotten through the participation in the Boardsmanship Institute. Congratulations to both of you. We have a pin and a certificate for each of them.
Next on our agenda is the approval of our current agenda. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Inspector, Ms. Anderson, any discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the approval of our consent agenda. Is there a motion?
So made.
Moved by Ms. Spector.
Second.
Second by Dr. Fleming. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, before we do the public participation, I also want to take a moment to congratulate our board members for their achievement in achieving the appropriate levels with the South Carolina School Board Association. Congratulations, guys. Next on our agenda is our public participation. No one signed up. However, if there's anyone in the audience who would like to come and address the board, you certainly can do so at this time. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? Okay, thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the approval of our executive session items. Chair will entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, on Student Appeal 7.2, I'd like to make this motion. Student number 1 will allow that student to apply to Blythewood Academy. Student number 3 will uphold the appeal and send it back to his school under strict probation. Number 4, we will allow the student to apply to Blythewood Academy. Number 5, we will allow the student to apply to Blythewood Academy. Number 6, we will deny the appeal. Number 7, we will allow the student to apply to Blythewood Academy. Also, student number 8, same motion, and student number 9. 6, we're going to deny the appeal.
You've heard the motion by Dr. Fleming. There's a second by Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Ms. Anderson, second. Not yet. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Chair will entertain a motion on student number 2. Ms. Anderson.
Chair, on student number 2, I recommend that we refer the student to apply to Blythewood Academy.
Is there a second?
Second.
Been moved by Ms. Anderson, second by Mr. Fleming. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Motion passes 4-3. Thank you very much. Next, under old business, no action requested. Update on the Ridgeview facilities improvements. Dr. Ham.
Yes, I'd like to call on Mr. Jack Carter to make that presentation, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you know, earlier in the summer we put together a list of projects we needed to complete at Ridgeview. I'm happy to report, if you go to the next slide, please. You can see that batting cages, the site has been laid out, the ground has been prepared. I think we got an update today that the company is going to come in on the 7th of August and start, so it'll go very quickly after that. batting, the storage buildings will come right after that. I'm going to show you some pictures to go along with this. The backstop for the softball is in. I was over there this morning. They had not painted it. I'm not sure if they got over there this afternoon. It's only a couple hours of work. The nets for the backstop will go to the next one. The gym floor is done. Looks great. The goals in the auxiliary gym, the additional goals are there, and the ability to raise and lower the goals is complete. The fence around the lacrosse field, I actually have to, for lacrosse season, I'll find that one. I just haven't done it yet. Go to the next one. The tennis courts have been resurfaced. I think they look great. I was talking to David. The nets are in order. They think they may install those maybe as early as tomorrow. The cooling tower is complete. The lighting upgrade for the 2 Kate labs is done, and the main parking lot is done. The loading dock is done. But doing the loading dock where the concrete needed to be replaced, we noticed the asphalt was bad. I asked them to go ahead and redo that asphalt, and they're supposed to do that tomorrow. So let's go to a few shots. This shows you the pad for the batting cage, where the new batting cage will go for baseball. Next slide. That is the backstop with the poles installed for softball. This is before they painted the floor. The floor is now painted and looks very, very good. The additional goals on the side of the auxiliary gym and the request of the school are in. And this just shows you they now have the capability to raise and lower the goals that are on both ends of the court. This is the lower field. They call it the pit. This is the field that's accessible from Rice Creek. That fence was to keep balls from going into a kind of a low wet area. So that's done. The school had asked for a fence across the end of the track to keep balls from going into the big detention pond down there. That's complete. Again, shots of the tennis court. Another shot of the tennis court. You see everything's done except the netting. That is the cooling tower. They're not particularly exciting to look at, but they're very important. This is one of the Kate labs. And go to the next one. This is the other Kate lab, so that lighting is complete. And this is the big parking lot on the right side of the school, all done and striped. That's where we replaced the concrete. You can't see it, but just short of that, where it went out into the loop road around the school, because that was a heavy duty area. That asphalt was taking a pretty good beating, so we'll build that down, resurface it, and that can be done as early as tomorrow. With that, I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Questions from the board, comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Manning.
Okay, explain the cooling towers, exactly what those are doing for us.
Replaced the original cooling tower that was worn out. We put Band-Aids on it for years. That's what circulates the cool water through the system to the air conditioning.
So it improved the efficiency and
Absolutely.
the volume.
Efficiency and it improved.
Other questions, comments from the board? Hearing none, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In addition, you know that there are remaining priorities. Would you like to hear from Dr. Matt Foxworth about those that are also part of this report? And I'm proud to say it is Dr. Matt Foxworth. She just recently received her doctorate. Congratulations.
Chairman of the board, other board members, let me just first say how appreciative I am of the renovations and improvement that have taken place at Ridgeview High Schools. I've heard so many of our parents and students comment on the tennis court. The purple color, they can see it from the road, it's eye-catching, it's sexy. So thank you. Your folks did a good job, Jack. We love our tennis court. The last time I was here, I had the pleasure of talking about our renovations. But at that time, I had a subset of parents. Some of my softball and baseball parents had the opportunity to give input about what they thought would help better prepare, help us with our athletics, softball and baseball field. But all of our parents and students at that time had not had the opportunity to tell me what they thought Ridgeview needed in order to be a better facility. So today I'm just going to give you the opportunity to look at the voice of not only our faculty, our SIC, baseball, softball, football. All of our parents had the opportunity to put and give us their thoughts. If you look at the top 10 priorities, okay, Okay, well, maybe it won't come up.
We have them.
You have them? Okay, great. The priorities that are listed, we have the artificial turf. As you know, our main field, a lot of our fall sports and our spring sports are played on those fields, and they're worn out often. So if we could have an artificial turf, then we wouldn't have to worry about the wear and tear on our field. The second item of priority is, students are always asking, wishing, can we play our home varsity game at Ridgeview High School? So that was a huge priority that came out of that survey. Third, as you know, our School for the Arts, our Fine Arts Department, they do a phenomenal job. Wendy Wimmer and the other fine arts teachers are always looking for ways to involve community members and children in the production. So the auditorium, parents said that if we could have an upgraded auditorium, that would include dressing rooms, drama rooms, scene shops, things of that nature, that would be really impressive to help our fine arts program continue to grow. Obviously, number 4, the athletic field house. Something like that, if we were given a home stadium, there wouldn't be a need to have the athletic field house. So some of these things would go away depending upon what we are given or the community is given for Ridgeview. If you look at item number 5, building a new gym. If not build a new gym, is there a way that we can repurpose our current gym and make the canteen area larger to accommodate basketball games? And as you know, we are now hosting the Bojangles Bash, and we want that tournament to continue to grow and grow and get larger and larger. And with that canteen area, we would like just to have a larger space so that the students and grandparents and community members who come out, that everybody is not so one-on-one and tight together. So that was a concern for parents as well as students, if there was a way to either get a new gym or repurpose the current one. Our media center is 20 years old. One of the things that we would like to do is improve the lighting and the furnishing in that area. Our current broadcast studio is located on C Hall. If there was a way we could refurbish or renovate our media center so that the broadcasting studio was close or beside the media center, because one of the media specialists works very closely with the broadcasting media program. So that was also a request. Our band program, large, great. Mr. Clayton has done a phenomenal job. I think he's been at Ridgeview for 20 years since it's open. Program growing, band parents phenomenal, very supportive. A request was put in either to expand or renovate the band room. Item number 8, add lighting to the main foyer. With the addition of that nice rotunda that was just recently added about 3 years ago, one of the unintended consequences was that it has cut off the lighting in the center hallway. So it's kind of dark, and so parents, students, faculty members, if we could add lighting to the main foyer to make it brighter, that would be greatly appreciated. And the last 2 items, new academic lockers. One of the things that would be good is that we have lots of different colors for our lockers at Ridgeview. One of the things we'd like to do is make them either purple or some form of silver. And at the time when Ridgeview was built, I think there were about 1,700 students, and it grew to be 2,000. Currently, with the opening of Westwood and Blythewood, we have more lockers than we need. So if there's a way that we could get more modern lockers and reduce some of the ones that we have, that will be greatly appreciated. And then the last thing, add HVAC to all hallways. With the new cooling tower, our parents and students haven't had the opportunity to come into Ridgeview, but it is doing a phenomenal job. The hallways are cool, the offices are cool, so I'm not sure that that will be something that we have to do, since we now have a cooling tower that is very efficient.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mack. Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Manning.
I just want to make a comment. One, I support everything you have here, plus I know there's more. on the list. I think it's interesting when I look through here, you've pretty much hit every major area of any school. You've hit the auditorium, the gym, the athletic facilities, the main entrance, pretty much all the components that people identify with the school and bring pride in and are critical. I feel like that because of the situation of where Ridgeview is, the location, that we have a problem that we need to address some of these things. Some of these things need to be addressed immediately, and I think that we should address it. But I think we should also go one step beyond that, and that is look at the real long-term viability of the location for Ridgeview High School and look at the potential for another facility. I support a athletic facility at all of our schools, even though we have tried to co-locate schools with athletic facilities. I think that just by default people end up identifying with the school, whatever facility is there, and so we have two schools that don't have them. We have we look at Westwood, they have banners all over the facilities there. So I think that we should address what needs to be addressed immediately, look at some viable options for repurposing the current facility of Ridgeview High School, and look at the possibility of a kind of a do-over, start over. We did it with Spring Valley High School, but they had the location. You don't have the location to make that work. And I would like for the district to come back with some opportunities for that, particularly as we head into a 2016 bond referendum, which some of this would have to be addressed in that referendum anyways, because we probably, I don't know what the costs are, but I'm sure it would be more than what we have on hand for some of the larger issues that need to be addressed.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Other comments or questions from the board? Certainly, I want to thank you, Dr. Mack, and all of the various school counselors and parents who participated in the process. And I certainly embrace fully the need to modernize Ridgeview in every area that's possible, while we continue to look at ways in the future to do even more. In the interim, I hope that we will certainly take advantage of every opportunity and the resources that are available to us now and in the immediate future to address many of the needs on your list as we work towards a possible future bond referendum, which will be needed to fund some of the larger items on your list, as well as a new school. And I know that the district is committed to doing that. I know this board is committed to doing that, and we simply just look forward to continuing improvements from now going into the future. Any other questions, comments from the board? Thank you very much, Dr. Mack.
I just want to
Ms. Anderson.
say thank you because I'd asked you for the top 10 priority.
Yes.
And you gave it to us, and we're not going to let it die down.
Thank
I
you.
support everything that the board members have stated already. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And for the public's knowledge, the Ridgeview renovations, improvements, and upgrades are going to be a permanent part of the board's agenda once a month to ensure that the areas that are being addressed and those that are on the drawing board to be addressed in the future will be addressed and will not fall off our radar. So thank you very much for that. We need to go back, board members. One item in my haste, in voting on the executive session items, overlooked personnel matter item number 7.3. So if you would go back to personnel matter 7.3, and that is the approval of the board for the principal appointment at CFA. The chair will entertain a motion at this time.
Second it.
Moved by Dr. Johnson and second by Ms. Brill. Sorry, moved by Ms. Spector. Shouldn't trust my hearing. I should. Moved by Ms. Spector, second by Ms. Brill. Any further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Next on our agenda, under new business action requested, is the approval of the diploma petitions. Dr. Ham.
Yeah, you may recall this approval is for people who are petitioning to receive their diplomas who may have otherwise been denied them only because they had failed the exit examination. New legislation allows these folks to appeal to the board, and you have those in your packet. If you have any questions, Katina Davis is available to answer them.
Questions or comments from the board? Hearing none, the chair will entertain a motion to approve the. Ms. Anderson approved it. Second by Mr. Manning. Any further discussion? Ms. Anderson motion and not approved it. Hearing none, we're ready to vote. Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the approval of the Digital Instructional Materials Implementation Plan. Dr. Ham.
Yeah, actually, there is availability to receive funding for digital instructional materials, but it requires approval from the board for us to move forward. Mr. Kramer is on hand to tell you a little more about that.
Mr. Kramer.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. And ladies and gentlemen of the board, in your board packet, we've given you an overview of a state proviso that governs the implementation and acquisition of digital instructional materials. And I'd like to point out that in your document, in your board packet, it should correctly cite proviso 1.77, so that change has been made within the system, just for the record. And this proviso requires school board approval of an implementation plan and of a digital instructional material that we can request for funding from the state. And in our case, in our plan, we are plan to submit, with your approval, the Discovery Education's digital streaming video resource, which is a curriculum standards-based video resource that we actually have been using in this district for about 10 years. But this proviso gives us the opportunity now to submit it to be approved on the state list so that we can receive funding from the state to pay for the resource. So tonight we are just looking for your approval to make that acquisition, make the submission.
Questions or comments on the board?
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Manning?
Mr. Kramer, could this also be used to fund, I know the online books or digital books are not funded by the state currently. Is this a resource that we could also use for that at some time in the future? Or?
This is a resource that is used across all curriculum areas, and it can be used to supplement textbooks, and the teachers use it to support their lesson plans. There are other materials on the digital resource list that we will be, academics, Nancy's area will actually be taking a closer look at that over the next couple of weeks to see what the strategy will be for the other instructional materials. But to answer your question, yes, this can be used and is used as a key resource within, it sort of supplements other materials that are out there.
So if we approve this tonight, we'll be able to use it for this Discovery Education Streaming Plus, as well as some book replacements.
There are opportunities for other book replacements as well. And, academics would be managing that piece of it. The reason why we're talking about this tonight, there's a Friday deadline to add new materials onto the list, so we're trying to get this approved then, so then there will be other opportunities to look at other digital materials.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Mr.
Comments?
Chair, I would
Ms.
like
Spector.
to make a motion to approve the digital instruction material implementation plan.
Been moved by Ms. Spector. Is there a second? Second by Ms. Anderson. And further discussion? Hearing none, we're ready to vote.
For me, I closed it down. I was getting ready to go. I forgot we were voting. It's taking so long to read. Thank you.
Motion passes 7-0. Thank you very much. We certainly want to excuse Ms. Anderson for leaving. She's having some challenges there with her back, and certainly in our thoughts, Ms. Anderson, and hope that it gets better real soon.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I apologize, but I also, before I leave, if you would allow me to
Yes, ma'am.
compliment our administrative group. I'm not sure the name of it, Georgette, but Jill was
Yes.
honored, received the highest award for this nation, I think it was. just wanted to make sure that I was able to congratulate Jim in public.
Thank you.
Awesome
Absolutely.
honor.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you for representing District 2 so well.
Thank you, Ms. Hampson. Next,
All of you, not just you, but the whole group.
next on our agenda under new business, no action requested, is a report from our Richland 2 Charter School. Dr. Ham?
And part of the agreement that the district has with the charter school is that they'll do an annual report, and that tonight's the night for the report. So Mr. Henry Lovett is here to make that report.
Thank you, Chairman Jackson, Richland 2 School Board, for the opportunity to present our report for this past year. We had a very successful year, and as we were going through all of the records and achievements and everything, we came on this one picture. And I think that says a lot if you look at the expression on the students' faces. These students enjoyed the charter school. They enjoyed their education. They were very appreciative of the things that they had been able to accomplish while they were there. I think some of y'all that were at the graduation saw several students and kind of surprised you that they would be graduating. These students fell in line. They did what was asked of them, and they were very successful. And above all, they had a very strong feeling, positive feeling about themselves. So from that, the purpose of this meeting tonight, as for our addressing you tonight, is to report on what we did for our past year, and also to request a permanent extension for our 9th and 10th grade students.
Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So before you start, could you introduce the board and staff members from the charter high school that are here?
Glad to. Several could not be here tonight. Our board members, Ms. Audrey Ratchford. Come on, stand up. They haven't seen you in a while now. Okay, and Mr. Tripp Gregory. I think a lot of y'all. Also for our staff, we have Rebecca Custom. Rebecca has been very active, not only in our school, but working with the district staff, with Jill. Jill's been very strong in encouraging her to get her certifications and working well. We appreciate that, Jill. Also, Ann Holland is with us. Ann has worked close with the district staff and the CAPE programs and a lot of the presentations that the district has done. We've also received a lot of benefits from the district on that. Okay, if we can get this rascal here going. Our staff, I think most of y'all are familiar with them. Rebecca, Angela Bright, our school counselor, could not be with us tonight. Brian Stiles was added last year. He had been a teacher with adult ed. He is now in charge of our English. He's our on-staff English teacher, English tutor, and is in charge of all of our testing. Sabrina Perilla continues to do an outstanding job in our computer lab and probably one of the strongest supporters of the program. She just has a knack of reading students. I see Keith approving. He's very familiar with how strong she is. She loves the kids, and they've realized it. Okay, going back to our mission statement, I think we're all familiar with that. One of the main things when we started the Richland 2 Charter School was the cooperation between the school and area businesses in trying to build skills with the students. This here, some of the places our students did job shadowings: First Citizens Bank, Russell and Jeffcoat, Richland County Sheriff's Department, WIS-TV on the morning show, Lexington County Solicitor's Office, USC Game Designing Lab, Lockhart Dental. We also had a lot of students interested in education. They did some job shadows at Westwood High School, Round Top Elementary, Langford Elementary, the Art Department at Richland Northeast, the McElveen Library at Shaw Air Force Base, and Unique Auto Sales. So they're getting out, they're realizing the jobs that are out there. Our goals and the target that we had on this particular target, we're shooting for 95% of our students to develop and implement an integrated project-based curriculum. We hit 94%. We had two of our students that stayed out for family responsibilities to raise their young children and then put off going into the job market for a year or two. Goal number 2, 100% of our students met that goal. They completed the leadership development course, which includes the job shadowing, internships, portfolio development, and presentation. This year, Ann Holland was able to work with Brian we put that course on Blackboard. Chuck Holland helped a lot with that, but our students could go in and address it and made it a real course. So they went and addressed that like they did in the other. Students kind of balked at this course. It's a lot of work and it's something completely different from them. But it's one of the highest achievements when they completed it. When they had their portfolio and they had done their presentation and an interview, they really, they came out of that feeling much better. The parents were really impressed. We also happen to have two of our board members that happened to be there, and Ms. Ratchford saw some of the presentations, and they were very excited about what they saw. Variety of learning opportunities. Again, that goes back with the internships, the job shadowings, and we've added this year a lot of the virtual job shadowings. I met with a company up in Greenville where we went to the leadership program up there, and we're talking to them about some additional virtual job shadows. This is our average daily membership, comparing 12-13 to 13-14. We started off slow, which we do each year when we had the number of graduates we did and had to build up. We had an average daily membership of 82.84, so a gain of 9 students. Okay, this shows you our grade level. As you can see, the 9th and the 10th, the addition of those, it started very slow. By the end of the year, we had built up to 11 9th graders, 20 10th graders. I guess the 10th graders have been our biggest surprise. I figured the 9th grade would be more in demand than the 10th grade, but the 10th grade has been where we've had the most requests for. Right now we have a waiting, on 10th grade we have 22 students that have applied for this coming year. We only have 20 slots. And we already have 11 9th graders that have applied. This, to me, I think is the most important part of our presentation. Each year I like to get feedback from our parents on what kind of job they think we're doing. We send out surveys. If you look at the scales, it's a scale of 1 to 5, with the 5 being the highest possible rating. In other words, they just very much approve of the question. This charter school meets the academic needs of my students. Everyone agreed with that. 4.8, so that's almost all of them giving a very strong agreement with that. And you can go through the rest of the list. One of the things that was concerned when we talked about adding the 9th and 10th grade was the safety for the 9th graders. If you will look down, it says, I believe my student is safe at the charter school. We had strong agreement from every parent. There was no question at all on that. The staff feedback was good. Charter school communication with the parent and guardian was a 5.0, which is as high as you can get. In that, when a parent wants to talk with our guidance department or guidance teachers, they don't have to have an appointment. If they can't get off work, our guidance counselor works on Thursday evenings till 8 o'clock. I work on Monday evenings till 8 o'clock. Ms. Holland's on Tuesday evenings. So we make it as parent and student friendly as possible, and the parents have really appreciated that. And if you go, I believe the charter school was a good choice for my student. 4.9, they're ready. Every one of them strongly agreed that they would recommend the charter school to other families. This is just some of the things we took off of some of the actual surveys. We had a comment section on there, and we put the parents, the last name by grade level. Next to the last one is kind of unusual, and that came from a parent whose child was not successful there. It came over as a 12th grader. And her comment was, wish that my son took advantage of the programs and the support available. So again, that's just some recap of some additional information where our students have gone off to school on that. And this is some of the things I think that makes us stand out a little different. Proficiency-based learning. We don't want the students to just have the knowledge that we're trying to share with them, but we want them to have the skills to go along with it. I think more and more businesses are demanding that. The knowledge without the ability to use it it's no longer acceptable. So they have to have that. Strong academic support by being a small school. Flexible day means a lot to our students. Soft skills training and work keys. Again, the state's going to be requiring everyone to take work keys, and we've been doing it for 3 years now. I think we had 32 students that actually took the work keys exam, and 28 of them, I believe, passed. One of them was sick and didn't get a chance to take the whole test. He only took part of it, and he passed the part he took. So we're very happy with the outcome on that. We're starting into a new era on curriculum. We'll be working with the Pearson Fuel Ed online classes. Class.com no longer exists, so this is going to be a learning curve for us. We will continue with the Key Train, the work keys. We have a strong alliance with South Carolina Virtual School as far as courses that we use through them. Impact on Richland 2. Again, when we started out, the concern was for the safety of the 9th graders. During the whole year, and this was, we learned a lot by doing. We had no idea what our 9th grade makeup would look like. In the 9th grade, we had 2 true 9th graders, first-time 9th graders. All other 9th graders were previously retained. We had no discipline problems or parent concerns about the safety the whole time. We did not have a single expulsion. We did not even have a single suspension. That's a great year. I hope we can come close to doing that again. But students are there for a purpose. They're ready to learn. At the end of the school, right near the end of the school, May 1, we had 11th, 9th graders and 20 10th graders were enrolled. Our first 9th grader was actually a 14-year-old that enrolled on September the 9th. And during her year there, she completed 7 high school courses. So the parents were really happy on that. And I guess one of our star students was a student that came to us, a special ed student, that had some major issues. And we sit down and we take time to learn these students and what it was, and it was a hyperactivity problem more than anything. But he was very disruptive in the average class. He'd been to Blythewood Academy, and that didn't work out well for him. The rascal came in, sat down. Sabrina spent a lot of time with him. Rebecca spent a lot of time. Miss Holland spent a lot of time. The kid really bought into it. By the end of the year, we were thrilled that our math tutor had not killed him, and he caught on to math. And by the end of the year, this rascal that had been unsuccessful for 3 previous years in ninth grade was tutoring other students in math. Completed 7 academic courses. So, it can make a difference to turn these students around. So at this time, if you have any questions or...
Questions or comments on the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Dr. Fleming.
curiosity, I see that the majority, or maybe even the vast majority of your students are female. Am I accurate, or is that?
That was, you looking at the picture on that?
Well, no, but I just from years past. I mean,
they are, and let's see, it's on...
graduations you had and stuff like that.
We had a lot of people, and that's one of the things that's kind of hard for my generation to understand, that didn't want to go through graduation. We even went so far as to provide free caps and gowns to some of them, and the parents wanted them to go through. Let's see, Trip, do you have the 59% female?
I didn't know if there was a trend or just, and it's not, obviously.
Most of our students have come to us by way of the guidance counselors at the high schools. They come over there and they come in and they make recommendations. We've had a very good relationship with the high schools, supporting them, and they've supported us. The beauty of it is, if a student comes to us and doesn't like that, every course that he has taken, every credit he's gotten, they can take back to that high school when they go back there. So it's
I don't think it's any secret that your parents approve because you're successful with their children. And if you're successful with your children, I believe you're going to get very good approval and recommendations. And it seems that y'all have accomplished that. I'm sure that was one of the things you really wanted to do. You started this charter school, and you have done it. So thank you for your hard work.
Other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Dr. Johnson.
Yes, Mr. Lovett, can you tell me how many surveys were sent out and how many returned?
We sent one out to every student that was there, actually to the home that was there, and I think we had about 25 or 26 that came back. I wasn't really happy with the return, but I remember at a board, we discussed the return at a board meeting. I think, Greg, what did you say? I think at the time you talked about the return on surveys that the hospitals would do or something at that time. Do you remember?
So how many were sent? I know 25 were returned.
We probably sent out 90.
And what percentage was that?
Okay, 26 out of 92 returned.
Mr. Manning.
Mr. Chairman, I thought it was interesting, Henry. I was in my attic actually this weekend, and I came across the magnets from the Richland 2 charter when I used to ride around with the magnets on the side of my car advertising the school from when I was involved with it previously. I want to make a couple comments. One, I want to commend your board. A lot of charter schools fail because of lack of proper board involvement. You have an amazing board, lots of strong commitment and a lot of activity, and I think that lends to a great deal of the success that you've had. Make a comment that I appreciate the leaps and bounds that you've made in the area of the work environment. That's one of the areas that was always a strong component of the school, and you certainly made a lot of strides in that area, which I think is important. And I've just been really pleased with where I've seen the charter school come. Also, financial stability is the liaison of our board to your board. You do a fantastic job in managing the finances, which again is another major reason that charter schools fail and are unsuccessful. And so I appreciate the work that you and your board are doing in those areas to maintain the stability and the quality of the school.
Just to give you an idea how far we've come, we used to ride around with the magnetic stickers on our cars and trucks. We've gone from magnetic car stickers to digital billboards up and down two-notch roads. So it's a little leap in that.
Other questions or comments on the board?
Mr. Jackson, I just have one other comment.
Sure.
And Mr. Levitt, you guys have made great progress, and I appreciate that. But I want to encourage our board members to go and visit the school. I'm not sure how many of you have had the opportunity to go over there and actually visit the school. So I encourage you to do that, since there are our students over there.
Thank you, Dr. Johnson.
And just another, so you mentioned visit. Dr. Zace came by, and I think he spent probably not close to an hour there, and he was really impressed with our students, and had several pictures made him. We had a girl dressed strictly in camo, and we had guys dressed all kind of different ways, but that's exactly what he was wanting to see. Students excited about learning and showing an interest in their school.
Other comments or questions from the board? Mr. Lovett, tell me what type of formative assessment is being done for students other than work keys? What else are you doing?
Other than the work keys, of course, we do the end of course tests that all other students are doing. We've had several. Do you remember how many passed fail on that?
Well, I don't need an exact number. I just want to know what else you do.
So we participate in that. We try to offer every type of assessment that the district does. Anytime something like that is coming on. One of the things that we have built on is our relationship with adult ed. Bobby Cunningham has done an excellent job with that. We support each other in that. We had a student actually came in today that couldn't decide which school would be better for them. We had their registrar come down and meet with us with the student, so the student and the parent could make an educated decision on which way they were going to go. The student only had 12 credits, needed 16 to work on a diploma track in adult ed, so she's coming to us, and then later on in the year she decides she wants to go to adult ed. She will have those credits. Again, this is a 19-year-old mother that has dropped out of school, and so between the two of us, one of us is going to get that student a high school diploma.
I think that if we were going to treat you, and I think we are, as a regular part of the district in terms of one of our high schools, the data on how your students are performing would be very helpful, certainly to me as a board member. And so I'm not going to put you on the spot tonight, but I would ask you to, if you could get some data back to us in terms of how your students performed on work keys, what the ratings and rankings were, the other formative assessments, how they performed, and how you're doing in regards to remedial education of those students that need that assistance. That would be helpful for me. Right. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Manning.
To just kind of add on to your comment, I think that with the charter high school using our virtual high school program that we utilize in the district, I know we're working at length with our teachers in the district on formative assessment on an ongoing basis for our students. And I want to make sure that the online virtual programs, because that is being used more and is a critical component of the charter school in our district for homebound, that may be an area where there needs to be some consideration and look through in that area as well.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Thank you, Ms. Lubbock, for a great job.
Again, thank you for the support. I hear horror stories across the state of charter schools that have not worked out well, charter schools that are arguing back and forth with their charter, the school that issued their charter. Charter schools have had lawsuits amongst board members, and we've managed to avoid all of that. It comes from strong leadership from our board as well as yours.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next on our agenda is the update on the building facilities. Dr. Ham.
Yes, this is an update on building facilities other than Ridgeview High School. And Mr. Carter will be here to make that presentation along with Mary Beth Branham, who'll bring people up to speed on our new elementary school, Elementary 20, which is in the planning stages.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we give you two short presentations tonight. First is on R2I2. We're going to show the video that was from the groundbreaking. The really only big change since then is we are scheduled to go before the county on Thursday for the review of the site and the plan. So that's really the next step to move forward and actually begin to move there. So if they'll bring up the video.
Yeah.
I'd like to say that I'm extremely excited about the new Richland 2 Institute of Innovation that will soon be in this very spot.
More than 100 people attended the groundbreaking of the Richland 2 Institute of Innovation, Richland School District 2's new student learning facility. The ceremony took place on a 31-acre site in the village at Sandhill, where the 180,000 square foot facility will be built. Attendees included elected officials, Richland 2 school board members, students, parents, community members, business partners, and district staff. Following the facility's planned opening in 2016, R2I2 will serve students from across the district, providing a central location for a collaborative learning environment that supports innovative instruction. In her remarks, Superintendent Debbie Ham invited the community and regional businesses and higher education institutions to partner with the district as it prepares students for jobs of the future.
And ES20 are both design builds. So while we have two different build teams, we're fortunate to have the same design firm on both projects. And so now I'd like to introduce Mary Beth Branham from LS3P and Alan Taylor with her tonight, and they will do an update on Elementary 20.
Thank you so much, Mr. Carter. And I'd like to take this moment to introduce you not only to Alan Taylor, my partner who's the project manager for this project, but also one of your students, Mr. Stephen Johnson, who's actually shadowing with us for about a month before he goes back to school. He's at Spring Valley High School, rising junior, and he's interested in architecture, so we're really excited to have him here with us. So we thought this would be a great opportunity for them to come meet the board. But anyway, we're very excited about the progress on the new elementary school. As you know, I believe here, as you know, the site is located off of North Trentham Road Extension as well as O'Neill Court. And you also know that the site is unique in that it does have some existing wetlands that we want to be sure to preserve. And so with the wetlands on these sides of the site, we were encouraged to produce a very compact floor plan to have very little disturbance on the site. So you can see that the resultant floor plan is very compact. So we were able to incorporate play areas on each side. The main entry does face North Trentham Road Extension, where we have a nice long loop road to allow for car stacking on site. We also are providing some park and walking area for pre-K and K students that would be coming and attending here. And off of O'Neill Court, we've also got the bus loop drop-off for the student entry back here so that the students may enter on either side. And I'm going to zoom into the floor plan here in just a minute. As you can see, this plan is oriented the same way that the site plan was, in that you enter here off of North Trentham into your secure entry vestibule for your administrative functions in the front. You can see that these compact floor plans basically have neighborhoods, classroom neighborhoods that you see in blue. So downstairs we have 4 classroom neighborhoods and upstairs we have 3. We had some wonderful programming meetings with many of the folks in your administration, and we really were focused on collaboration and flexibility in terms of how this floor plan developed. And so you see that these neighborhoods not only have 5 or 6 classrooms depending on which neighborhood you're in, but they also open to a collaboration space so that you can really intersperse your students for project-based learning and really provide some great opportunities for learning together as well as individually. And we also want to open out into some of the site areas where we want some exterior learning environments as well, because we have this wonderful natural resources that we want to take advantage of. So you can see that in the center really is the core kind of functions of your information media center, your performance area, your dining, and then the kitchen towards the rear, as well as the PE that opens out into your playground area. As you move upstairs, again, these would be for your upper level grades. Then also an opportunity to look down into the media center so that you really get a lot of upstairs downstairs connectivity as well, so you don't feel like your upstairs and downstairs are 2 separate communities. As we move into the elevations that we've started to develop, you can see that we used, again, because of the site and the natural environment, we wanted to use some nice earth tones to really complement that. You can see that we're actually using a combination of, in the lighter tones, those are brick colors, varying brick colors, to create some low scale. You know, when we have a 2-story structure, we still want it to feel intimate for elementary age children. And so we're introducing some nice covered canopies to really bring down the scale so that they can come outside and play undercover as well as outside. A very identifiable front entry. Another element is that we recognize that it's near the international corridor, and so we wanted to introduce some color, so we're bringing in some colored glass, perhaps in reds and blues. We may introduce some flag components on the interior coloring and that sort of thing. So again, you can see as we're coming around on the site, you can see as if you were coming up the drive and dropping off a student in the front, what that might look like. And you can see these neighborhoods each become like little houses. We got a really great feedback from the programming meetings to make it really feel like the children could relate to it being their home. So we have these front porches that come out on each of the neighborhoods to again kind of make the children really feel comfortable. Those are outdoor enclosed environments for activities as well. So that's it in a nutshell, unless you have any questions.
Questions or comments on the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Manning.
On elementary 20, I have 3 things. Number 1, I want to make absolutely sure that we're meeting with the community, particularly on the environmental aspect of this location. I think it's critical. It's something that we went into this stating that we would partner with the community. I want to make sure we don't get too far down the road before we involve them, so they feel like they're as much as possible part of the process and not coming to them after the fact. Number 2, I want to reiterate, I want to make sure we meet with the community ahead of time to make sure that they're part of the process ahead of time and not after the fact. Number three, if there's any way we could reduce the amount of steps within the facility and look at ramps or other opportunities for our students in a two-story elementary building, I would certainly appreciate doing that. And then Dr. Ham, going to the R2 Institute of Innovation, I know that we had talked about and put in the budget a position for that center. Have we made any progress in looking to hire for that?
We have worked on that, but we have not made a hire nor advertised that position yet.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Other
Mr.
questions?
Manning.
Other questions or comments from the board? Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Next on our agenda is a report on customer service standards. Dr. Ham?
Yes, I think our expectations from the district office and from the board are that we'll provide excellent customer service and welcome every single person who walks through the doors of our schools. But we've never really formalized that in terms of standards. We've had a group that's worked on that, and to tell you about it is Dr. Shirley Vickery and Abby Cobb.
Good evening. Good evening.
I'm tall. Chairman Jackson, members of the board, and Dr. Ham, executive staff. This work actually originated out of the Transient Student Task Force, which may seem like an odd place for customer service standards to start being discussed. But if you remember, we've been working all year on improving our services to families who move. And we had two goals this year. One was to make sure that information was shared readily between staff members and we got the right information on students. We're continuing to roll that out with the use of registration and withdrawal checklists, and that training is scheduled for next week. Our second goal was to make sure that we had a consistent approach to customer service. And as the team started talking about this, we realized we didn't have an organized set of standards that we could say, this is what we believe in for customer service in Richland too. So the team started looking at other school districts and what they have, and we whittled away on them and came up with a proposal for 4 standards. And that's what we're going to share with you tonight. I want Ms. Cobb to give just a brief story as to why the Transient Student Task Force took on this kind of project. It means something to some of the folks whom we've worked with.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I wanted to share with you a situation that I learned about this school year and how instrumental the relationships that we form with our families impacts them. We had a student that I became aware of this year who's in 5th grade, and we were her 15th school. And unfortunately, we became aware of her when she was withdrawing from us, and she was moving on to her 16th school in the 5th grade. And when I heard this information, I was immediately quite concerned. And I immediately called my school social worker to figure out if she was aware of the family and what was going on. And excuse me, she was quite aware with the family. And the more we really talked about it, what was really evident to me was that our family had a really positive experience at the school, at one of our schools, that has led to this family being able to make positive choices and now are in a better situation. And it was the impact that our staff had on that single mom that allowed her to really feel comfortable to seek services, to come to the school when she needed assistance, to get the guidance and the help that she needed for her daughter. That I think that experience, while they're no longer with us, unfortunately, that experience is going to last a lifetime for that young lady. And hopefully she's going to continue to remain stable and not have to be continually moving from school to school. But the impact that we have had on her, even in that short period of time, I think is going to last her a long time. And it's just really evident for me that the relationships that we build with our families, every interaction that we have with our families is an opportunity to build a connection, to strengthen our bond with them. And whether they're with us for a short period of time or whether they're with us for the entire educational experience, our customer service skills really impact those relationships.
That's why we tackled this particular topic. We also are convinced that good customer service results in higher academic achievement for these students. That the more we respond positively to them in the beginning, the more positive they are to our staff in the end. So that's why we went this way. We have only 4 standards, and if you'll notice, every standard starts with the word "we pledge." It's a very strong word. We want staff to really commit to doing this, and we want every staff member in the district to be committed to these things. We chose only 4 standards because we want people to be able to memorize them just from hearing them one time. I think you can after we explain them to you because they're really easy things to remember. The first 2 are, the first one has to do with really respecting a diverse group of customers. That includes people who move a lot, that includes people who have disabilities, that includes folks who may come in with a variety of needs that we are not always sure how to answer. The second standard is the whole idea of really being there for whoever it is you run into and making sure you listen to them, figure out what they need, and try to help them, even if it isn't your area. That's the way we expect every employee to go.
So when we move on to Standard 3, we're pledging to really provide facilities and equipment that are accessible, safe, and inviting, making sure that we have clear signage for entry into our buildings and once you get into our buildings where you know you need to be. And Standard 4 is our pledge to continually to improve and to make sure that we're receiving feedback on how we're doing and constantly be working towards making those improvements. And so we presented these standards last week at the district administrative in-service, as well as our executive staff has seen them. And we are working on our rollout procedure, and we are working on a video that will be our training video to start out with, and then we're going to continue to work on our plans for how to roll it out further. Thank you. Questions?
Questions or comments from the board? Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is our data snapshot update. Dr. Ham?
Mr. Potts will be making that presentation. You have a copy of the revised document at your place.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Dr. Ham, and executive staff. 4 years ago, you remember that our board chair, Chip Jackson, requested that the board receive regular updates regarding important data and display them, that current information compared to previous information in a 5-year snapshot. These snapshots would help the board members see changes within district enrollment, demographics, test scores, financial data, and other important data over time. After formally presenting the snapshot earlier this spring, the board had provided some feedback regarding the structure of the document. Some of the comments included displaying trends of data, 5-year trends of data, as opposed to a 5-year snapshot, scaling down the document, including assessment from all grade levels, and requesting that the snapshot be provided when there is new data to report. In an attempt to honor these requests, tonight you've been provided with an updated document that could potentially serve as the new board snapshot. This version has been revised recently with feedback from the board chair. Most of the data for the 13-14 school year hasn't been made available yet to update within this document. You'll notice a majority of things that we had previously within the old snapshot is included in this new snapshot. Some of the things that have been removed, data like HSAP, which is no longer being reported at the state level. There were some revisions in financial data. Instead of just giving you 3rd and 8th grade pass performance, showing you an average performance for elementary, average performance for middle, and so the elimination of a few technology elements that probably aren't that, well, not that important, that the metrics don't mean that much to us anymore. One of them was 1-to-1 classrooms. All of our classrooms from grades 3 and up are 1-to-1, and the idea of smart boards. All of our classrooms have smart boards or kind of an equal equivalent. So that's the new potential snapshot. and I'm able to answer any questions that you may have about it.
Questions or comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Manning.
One, Jeff, I appreciate the trending. I know that was one thing that I particularly asked for, and I think that it's very interesting to actually look at some of the trends and what that means. I do think it's important, though, for the district to have, at some point, a discussion or response around some of this. So when I look at percent of middle school students scoring met or higher on SC Pass, and I look at math and it's a straight line, going down, that's an obvious area of concern. So just to see the data is just a entry or segue into a discussion that needs to be had about what that means while we're there, where we're going. I know getting in a smaller format, I actually kind of like the flip book a little bit. It was a little easier actually to digest it than this format. I'm not sure if some others had some concerns. And then kind of another place where I'd like to see this go, and one thing that I've been asking for is an online sort of environment, dashboard, so to speak. So that, if I'm somewhere and I can pull it up on my smartphone and get access to some of this data as I'm kind of on the way into a meeting about to talk with some constituents or a particular constituent about some issues, or just have spare time, it would make it available for me to see it. But I definitely applaud you and the district for the progress that we're making and continuing to make strides with this information.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Other questions or comments on the board? Dr. Fleming.
Since I have two principals, or former principals sitting to my right, I want to ask them, when you get phone calls or inquiries into your schools, what do parents ask about? What type of information do parents ask you? What do they want when they're trying to find out about your schools? I just want to make sure it's on here. Okay,
I think one of the things that parents, many times when parents call in, they already have a lot of the information that they're looking for prior to calling, and they just really want to kind of get reassurance. So a lot of things that they're looking for would be SAT, ACT averages. They're looking for information about discipline. A lot of them want the opportunity to simply come in and view the culture and climate of the building, because many of them realize that we have very savvy parents, very in tune parents of what's important in education, and they really want to come in and see what the learning environment looks like. So I know many of the principals have gone to ambassador programs where we offer tours in the schools so parents can see and feel what a typical day would look like for their student at that school. But many of them already have this information, have done their research, and have visited our school's websites and looked at our school report cards prior to coming into the school.
Yeah, I would only echo that they do a lot of their homework ahead of time, and many of the things that they want to know is, can they come and see the school for themselves? And basically what they do a lot of is reporting what they hear from other parents and from other community members. Not so much data points, but it's about the culture of Richland too, and of a particular school, and what kind of feedback they get when they ask those types of questions.
Talking to principals in your particular areas that you're going to be working with, so you know what they need to do. That's what you're talking to them about as far as presenting their schools. And I think most of this covers what you were saying, so I just want to make sure talk to you about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Other questions or comments on the board? Jeff, I'd like to echo what Ms. Manning said. I think, and that's probably not directed to you, more to Dr. Ham, and that is, and the executive staff, to sort of have the conversation continue, and the next part of the conversation be a discussion about, based upon the data, so here's what we're doing, here's where we are, here's where we're going, sort of thing, so that the board has sort of a clear understanding of sort of a recognition of the challenges, but not only a recognition of them, but also a plan. I find one piece of data on here kind of interesting and sort of surprises me, and that is your free and reduced lunch data basically virtually didn't change from one year to the next, although the poverty index out in our community has drastically changed. And I'm just kind of, maybe that's because kids are not applying for free and reduced lunch, not acknowledging it, but it surprises me that given the huge shift in the poverty index of Northeast Columbia, and that there hasn't been a proportionate adjustment upward in the free reduced lunch rate. Just an observation. Other questions or comments on the board? Mr. Manning.
And I know I've been talking a lot, but I do want to make one additional comment because I think Bill asked the question, Dr. Fleming, and I think it's a critical one of what are parents looking at when they make decisions for schools. And this is something I talked a little bit about this to the district. And I think, it's interesting. Truly, it was just bought by Zillow. We see the ad on TV, right? The guy in the military, and he says the wife's excited about the school, but he says, but have you looked at the score? I think that's another piece of data that we as a district can't ignore. Whether it's right or wrong or whatever we feel about the data that's out there, that's another key data point that leads to some of people's feelings about the climate and culture of Richland 2 and individual schools that we have within our district. And I think it's a serious conversation that we have to address. We're all educators. We need to look at things beyond that sort of just single number that gets assigned to a school to improve it. But I think it's something that we can't just ignore, not talk about, and not work towards how do we improve that. Because I think it is a critical piece that people look at when they look at a home. Do I buy in Richland 2 if I'm moving here? What school does that go to, and what are they rated versus another home that I might like in another area? And so I think we need to have some serious discussions about that. And I know there are some things we can address specifically about it, but we have to figure out how to work with or around that, and keep that in mind as we go forward.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Other questions or comments on the board? Thank you very much, Chair. Next on our agenda is a report from the superintendent's planning retreat. Dr. Ham?
Yes, we had a planning retreat, I guess, a couple of weeks ago where we brought together a group of teachers, school administrators, district administrators to talk about what we needed to do strategically this school year to try to identify a relatively finite number of areas that we wanted to make sure we didn't overlook. We know that there are things that go on routinely, the 4 squares, learning, character, community, and joy, we're going to continue to work on, but what were some specific strategies we needed to put in place? And so, there's a limited amount of time, and you have to ask yourself, which ones are we going to make sure that we attend to? And we're kind of landed on keeping the 4 squares for the upcoming year, but adding 9 particular areas of action. And I want to go over those 9 areas with you for a moment. Next slide, please. You can go on. The first area, and the board has already identified this as one of your priorities as well, is to look at all of our magnet programs, all the way from how we do the selection of students to the outcomes that we have in those programs. We put together a task force already that's begun the work on that, and we anticipate bringing a first round of reports and recommendations to you starting in September. That will come out in phases starting in September. The second one is student discipline. Student discipline issues have been a national issue in terms of suspensions and expulsions, but we know that we can do a better job here in Richland 2. We'll be looking at suspensions, expulsions, and from our faculty advisory committee, they're interested in the issue of just classroom discipline as well. So we do have another task force that has already been identified that includes educators, community members, people from law enforcement, in other areas as well that'll be working on those issues. Unfortunately, there are great national models and a variety of resources that are coming out to support that work. The next one is policy and practice. What do we believe? Where do we stand? Richland 2 has a long history of site-based management, but as we have reflected on the amount of transients we have questions like what should be site-based and what should be uniform across the district. We have a large special education program. There are different models for special education. We might want to look at that as an area where we think about, how much inclusion do we want to do versus how many resource rooms. There are a whole variety of issues that we can look at, and this group will be identifying key issues where we need to have some commonality of beliefs in terms of as they affect our practice for teaching and learning across the district. The next one is middle school success. You're talking about being honest about areas where we need to work on academic improvement, and middle school is certainly one of them. And so we have been working on that. We really started an initiative. We're wonderful to approve some additional staff that are focusing on curriculum and instruction for middle school. Changes have already been made in the area of mathematics, but that's something that needs to be continued and looked at broadly. So we'll be putting together another group that'll be continuing the middle school improvement efforts for the upcoming year. The next area is leadership management and supervision, the nuts and bolts training. As we've talked about before, we have a lot of new professionals who are in who are professionals who are in new administrative roles or newly placed in administrative roles, to have the professional development that supports them, and to remember that even for our veteran administrators, ongoing professional development is an important part of our efforts to continuously improve what we do. The next area, again, this is very consistent with one of the priorities that the board has identified, is how do we use data, continuing to work on using data to improve teaching, learning, and the services we provide. And one thing I'll point out about this is while there's often a lot of information and professional development about using data and data literacy in the classroom, there are ways we can use data across the organization to improve what we do. And that is part of number 6. A comprehensive diversity plan. As we were hearing from Dr. Vickery, she talked about the number of ways we're diverse and how we need to welcome all those people into our district. So when we talk about a comprehensive diversity plan, we're talking about a variety of ways that we're diverse and the variety of things that we need to consider in making sure that we address the diversity, the changes in the demographics in our population. And those things range from curriculum to how we welcome people into our schools, our attitudes, etc. So that's truly a comprehensive plan that looks broadly at that topic. The last area is, it's not the last area, grading and assessment comes up next. That is one that just will not go away, but as we move into an era where there's more and more emphasis on students mastering standards, issues of grading and assessment come into play. Do you need standards-based report cards? As the grades become more high stakes with scholarships and other things associated with them, knowing whether we have the assessments to back up those grades is another issue that comes into play. So this group will be working on looking at grading and assessment, from how do you grade individual papers to what should our report cards look like, so that we can communicate clearly with students and parents about what needs to be achieved. And then the last area is positioning and marketing of Richland School District 2. We want to be the school district of choice, and we're very proud of all the opportunities people have in Richland too. But how do we do that successfully so that we continue to have the kind of marketing position that we have right now? So we'll be working on positioning and marketing Richland too. And that not only affects us immediately, but looking ahead to a future bond referendum, how do we position ourselves to be competitive and to get the vote to continue to be the kind of school district that offers facilities like we do. So those were the areas we identified as priorities for the upcoming year, and I'd welcome any comments you have about those as priorities.
Thank you, Dr. Ham. Questions or comments from the board?
Dr. Ham.
Ms. Manning.
I want to applaud you. I think that from what I've heard and seen from other board members and from myself, it appears that you're focusing on a lot of the things that we've talked about that need focus and attention in the district. So I'm excited to see these actually listed in a format that we can follow up. And I think it would be interesting if we as a board could find a way to kind of structure our agendas in such a way that maybe we're at least hitting one or two of these key areas and looking at the time that we're spending, the things we're talking about, are they in line with what we've asked you to do, and figure out how we can line those two things up, so that maybe we don't get our agenda so spread out and maybe off topic, and stay focused on the things that we need to be focused on going forward.
Thank you, Mr. Manning. Other questions or comments on the board?
I too,
Ms.
I think
Brill.
it was an excellent report, and it does highlight everything that we had mentioned in our executive sessions and things that we thought were important, and it's spot on. So thank you, Dr. Ham. It's excellent.
I do want to say this was a team effort. It was a whole group of us that got together and spent a day working on this. So thanks to everybody who had their input on it.
Other questions or comments on the board? I would certainly echo what Mr. Manning has said as well, and I think it's critically important that now that the work of coming up with the priorities has been done, the harder work of actually following through and implementing them and keeping the board informed of the success that you're having is equally as important. So we look forward to hearing more as the year progresses in terms of your success towards these priorities. So thank you very much for that. Next on our board agenda is the proposed policy, no action required, use of the EpiPen. Dr. Ham.
Yeah, this would allow our board policy to be consistent with new state law, I believe it is, concerning the use of EpiPens in schools. And Dr. Coutinho Davis is here if you have any questions about that.
Any questions or comments on the board? There was one question we had, Ms. Davis. Did you come to the mic, please? There's one question that was asked in terms of who in the school will actually be certified. Will classroom teachers be certified, and how will that happen?
In our procedures, Dawn McAdams, our lead nurse, will go in. Of course, the school nurses will be trained. Generally in the schools, the school principal, administrators, coaches, athletic directors are trained to use it, but it will be designated folks. They will have to go through state training, specific training to administer.
Other questions or comments on the board?
Mr. Chairman, this will be the first official reading of this, and we'll be asking for a vote on it at your next meeting.
That is correct. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ms. Davis. Next on our agenda is a report on the academic programming to comply with 2014 legislation.
And this is actually in response to a board request for information about how we're complying with Read to Succeed, multiplication facts, and cursive writing requirements that the state has. And Mrs. Gregory will be making this presentation.
Good evening, Chairman Jackson, members of the board, Dr. Ham. This is an update for you, as Dr. Ham said, about recent legislation. June was a very busy month with the legislature, and we're going to start with the Read to Succeed legislation that was passed on June 11th by Governor Haley. And as we do, you'll see that it's a very complex it is very complex legislation. There are actually 8 components to the legislation. So we've given you a document that gives you a little bit of background and an update on each one of these. So we won't go into those in depth. We've only received directives on 2 of these, and part of the reason is the State Department is creating, as we speak, the Read to Succeed office, who is directing the Read to Succeed legislation. So again, if you look at the 8 components, we've given you an update. We're only going to really talk about 2 that we're actually working on now. But know that last week when we had administrative in-service, we spent time with all the administrators in the district. We gave them a document very similar to yours and went over the different components with them. So, like we said, summer reading camps and the reading coaches are the 2 main components right now. The reading camps, we talked to you in June about these, and the purpose was to provide intensive instruction for students who are substantially not demonstrating reading proficiency by the end of 3rd grade. We had 53 students attend this camp, the 6-week camp at Windsor, and we will continue to monitor the progress of those students as they return back to their schools. The second piece the reading coaches. And the information is there, and Dr. Miley has sent you some information also. But the purpose of these coaches, they will serve as job-embedded resources for teacher PD. And so they will provide scaffolding and support and ongoing PD for teachers. So we are excited about that. A recent caveat was added for middle and high schools. They are strongly recommending at the State Department that they select either a teacher or teacher leader that will go through a similar training program, whereas the reading coaches will be going through training at the district level and 2 times a month at the state. At the middle and high, the lead teacher or identified persons at the middle and high will also receive training. And where that is going to be important, and we spent a little bit of time with administrators last week, is talking about the teacher prep and the changes in requirements for literacy endorsement. And so just know that is listed and is one of those things that we spent a good bit of time. Where the reading coaches will be important is the training that they will receive. They can offer professional development at their sites for our teachers, moving towards the coursework that will be required and the PD. Same thing for the middle and high school. There is one correction, because we are constantly getting updates and staying on top of this, because this legislation is unfolding as we speak. But number 6 on early literacy and learning, we know that there is an RFP out for a 4K, 5K assessment, and that is just unfolding. So that's a little change since we sent this information to you, and Jeff Potts is working on that and following up on that for us. So that's kind of where we are there. The last piece that you had asked about is the Back to Basics education. This was passed on June 9th, and we've talked about this a little bit before, whereas for the next school year, we will need to provide cursive writing instruction for students, or make sure they can create legible cursive handwriting by the end of 5th grade. And if you'll remember about students being able to memorize the multiplication facts by the end of 5th grade. We've given you an update where we are there. We're doing an analysis of our schools, have started dialoguing with elementary schools as we prepare, and we'll have a plan for implementation as we move into 2015-2016. So lots going on with the legislation. And do you have any questions?
Questions or comments from the board? One question, Ms. Gregory. Any teacher who is teaching reading and doesn't successfully pass this new test, practice read, whatever it's called, what's going to happen?
That's a good question, and we'll ask that because we have, the information I've given you is what we have, and we have not received the training. They have not even gone through the approval process for the PD. So I know that part of our jobs and the reading coaches will be to provide that PD and that support at our level so that we can make sure that they get there, because we have a lot of flexibility. I think I listed for you that they can go the coursework route, and this is elementary school, or they can do the hours for renewal credit, and I think that's where we have the control to help them with the hours of renewal credit, or there's a third option where they can do a mix. So again, I think since we have control over the PD and it does not have to be the coursework, it can be renewal credits. I don't foresee that that would be an issue.
So did I understand you correctly to say then that they may not be required to have to take the test? Is that what it means?
Oh, you're talking about the praxis test,
yes.
the reading praxis.
Yes.
Actually, there is discussion from the State Department. They are trying to remove that. Okay. So that's the piece. I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about the other. Yeah. That is a concern with the reading praxis. And again, in our conversations with the State Department, they have talked about a strong possibility of that going away.
Keep us posted on that, because that could have major implications, not just to a strong district like Richland 2, of course, but a lot of other districts in the state where there are some teachers who may be teaching reading who haven't taken a test themselves in a very long time.
That's correct, and that's why one of our concerns, and why we spent a little bit of time with administrators last week going over that particular piece, and are working with our Human Resources Department, because that is a very critical piece. So.
Thank you. Other questions, comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Manning.
I think that one area that I see, and certainly I don't want to distract from where we are now because you have a lot of work to do, but I know Mr. Jackson has talked at length about our before elementary, working on, with some of the other schools that are in the area for pre-kindergarten to kind of come up with some standards and some ideas about how do they prepare students for school. And when I looked at our data snapshot and I looked at Dibble's scores and reading efficiency, it looks like that's on the decline. Maybe the test changed or something else, but for first and second graders, it seems to me that maybe once we get our feet kind of under us on some of these initiatives, that maybe one small component of what these reading coaches could do could be to formulate some standards or maybe some training opportunities that we could extend over summer or some other times and try to leverage all this knowledge to some programs. I read in the state today that that they don't really oversee much of what happens right in our preschool programs outside the district. So just a thought of maybe a future direction where we could leverage a lot of this in a positive.
Mr. Manning, I'll jump in because we are in some active conversations working on that very issue. And I think probably as early as your next meeting, I'll be able to report on some of that.
Fantastic.
Because I agree strongly.
Thank you.
Right. Any other questions? All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Gregory. Next on our agenda is the agenda items for our August 12th board meeting. Dr. Ham?
Yes, sir. On August the 12th, we'll be right back here at Polo Road Elementary. We'll have a faculty focus. Our state assessment scores are projected to be publicly available then, so we anticipate being able to report on those, as well as the ESEA accountability results. We'll be giving you an update, as you requested, on work keys, a report on the CAT grant, and then we'll be doing second and final reading to the epinephrine auto-injector policy and the regulations that go with that.
Thank you very much. Are there any additional items the board members would wish to have added to the 12th agenda or any future board agenda? Thank you very much. Next on our agenda is the public participation part 2. Is there anyone who would like to address the board at this time? Thank you. As we wrap up, we'll wrap up by having board and superintendent comments. We'll start with Dr. Fleming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to, one item only tonight, I want to express my sincere appreciation to this district, board members, staff, principals, teachers, and all those who supported me and my family during my father's death last week. My family was just couldn't believe the outpouring of support, and I just wanted to thank you, each and every one of you. You've done a lot to me, and I was just personally, I was very fortunate to have my dad for 63 years, and he lived to a great age of 93. Thank you for your support.
Thank you, Dr. Fleming. Dr. Elkins Johnson?
No comments, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Manning?
I want to just reiterate our use of data, and Debbie, I appreciate you and your staff. I see you using more and more data and looking at it and bringing us in directions. I thought it was interesting. There's a website that I look at in the IT industry, CIO.com, for information officers in the IT field. And lo and behold, the headline yesterday for that site was, "Can data analytics make teachers better educators?" And I think it really just goes to the point that businesses are applying what they call big data, and that in some ways schools have been using that in an informal way, but I think we have to find more formal ways to get at that data and really look at where we are, apply resources, think about things in a different way than we've ever thought about it in the past. And so I applaud the efforts that your group, that this district is making in looking at and applying data for decision making in our district. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Manning. Ms. Spector?
Comments, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Spector. Ms. Brill?
We had a lot of great, excuse me, reports tonight, and I appreciate all the research and work that went into them. I was particularly struck by the one by Dr. Vickery about customer service, because I think that's something that we all need to think about and we all could utilize in our dealing with the public, parents, students. So I hope you don't just keep it to your department. Share it with everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Brill. Dr. Ham.
Yes, sir. Well, first of all, I'd like to announce that when you voted on that personnel matter, that you voted to make Sabina Masso-Taylor, Dr. Masso-Taylor, in the back, if you would stand up, please, to make her the new principal at the Center for Achievement. And I hope people will join me in giving her a round. We're very excited to have her in that new position. It is absolutely full steam ahead for us getting ready for the new school year. We met last week with all of our administrators for 2 days for our back-to-school workshops for them. I will mention that you said don't leave the customer service in their department. Part of that in-service was to make sure everybody knew what those customer service requirements were and our expectations that we would be doing those things. We also did work with all of our 4 squares as part of that. This week we have our new teachers in our annual New to 2 program. We have 271 new teachers at this point in time, and about half of them are first-year teachers. Of course, we have great coaches and a great program for inducting them, but we're excited about our new teachers and these new 2 teaching teachers joining the Richland 2 family. And then I also want to mention we did have a group of office professionals that went to the National Office Professional Conference in Portland, Oregon. Ms. Anderson also mentioned how proud we are of Jill Averyhart, who won first place nationally for the website that she does for that organization. And Dr. Cappy Stack, the principal at Forest Lake, received the National Education Administrator of the Year award. So we had 2 big award winners there. Anyway, we really have outstanding office professionals, and we're very fortunate that that they attend this conference and the quality of work that they do. So I want to commend all of them. Those are my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Ham. Let me say I had the opportunity to be able to attend both the in-service for the district administrators and the New to 2 folks that were hired on this week, and it was an exciting time, a lot of energy. I said to Dr. Hefner, Brenda Hefner at her new school at Blythewood when I came in, you could feel the electricity and the energy in the building, in the auditorium. People were extremely excited, and it's a good feeling to know that people are still excited to want to come and be a part of your district. It makes all of this worthwhile. If there are no other further comments, the chair will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Mr. Manning? Second, Ms. Spector. Thank you very much. Have a good night, folks.